Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 835, Friday, July the 12th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so we got a pretty good story today in the New York Post from Paul Sperry, as well as a couple Paul Sperry tweets, an interesting Papaglopoulos tweet. And let's see, what else we got here? Oh yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the thing I didn't have time to talk about yesterday regarding the Operation Crossfire Hurricane, the timing, and what the FBI says, something Nunes has been talking about for well over a year now. So I'm going to hone in on that just a little bit before the end of the video. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, let's get this stuff out of the way first. First of all, of course, we had Crooked Hillary, the rotten Reverend Clinton. The rotten Reverend. She posted instructions in Spanish on how to evade ICE agents. Then, of course, Pelosi followed suit. And I believe Ocasio-Cortez did the same yesterday. So here we have these demo commies essentially telling people how to break the law to get into the country. Now, that seems to me that it would be a crime. Obstruction of justice, maybe? I mean, if I instruct you on how to commit a crime, it's touchy. I don't know if that quite meets the threshold of a crime in itself, but, you know, it's close. It's very, very close. But more importantly, it's this type of thing that's going to linger and continue until 2020, and this is just the type of thing, and this is why Trump's going to win in a very large, I'm predicting he's going to win bigger than he won in 2016, because this is the type of thing that people pay attention to. Even if you're a casual observer and you're not someone who follows maybe the things like that we cover, you know, those of us who are kind of interested in this sort of thing. I'm talking about the people who really don't even pay very much attention to these sorts of things, just if they just happen to hear it. About something like this. This is the type of thing that makes people scratch their head and wonder if these particular politicians are nuts. Because it comes down to common sense, really. I mean, it's not even it doesn't even become a political issue at some point. It's just a common sense issue of we have a border. We know we have a problem, and we've had a problem for a very long time. We don't even know how many millions of illegals are even in the country. Some say it's, you know, I've heard 8 million, I've heard 11 million, I've heard 16, I've heard 20. God knows how many people are. We don't even know. And the average person just, got a fly driving me nuts. The average person, just in common sense alone, has to, you know, hear something like this and scratch their head and wonder, you know, what are these people crazy? You know, it's one thing to take issue with our immigration policy or how to deal with the caravans and things and such, people coming across the border illegally. You can have debates about that, but this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about high-profile Democrats, including current politicians, former politicians, specifically. In some cases, we have the one Democratic congresswoman. She is going into Mexico and telling these people who were deported that they can get back into the country, and the loophole that they can use is by saying that they do not speak Spanish or English. They don't speak either of the languages, and that'll work. So they're getting instructed on how to break the law. They're being motivated to break the law. They're being instructed to break the law. So, you know, this is beyond just your normal, you know, politics. This is not even politics. This is just common sense, and it's this type of thing that I think is going to. In fact, the immigration issue may end up, especially because the economy is doing really well, and when the economy is doing really well, people don't talk that as much about it. So immigration, which is the number 2 issue behind the economy, may become the number 1 issue. And I'm telling you, the Democrats are going to lose very, very badly on this issue. And I know people say, well, once they get the nominee, they're going to move to the center. You're not going to be able to walk this back after 3 years or more of so much in-your-face antics on this issue, they're not going to be able to walk that back unless people have been living, in a cave. So yeah, this is only going to come back to bite them in the ass, and it certainly should. And again, I'm not so sure that this isn't, some violation of the law. And I wish Barr or someone at the DOJ would start taking a look at this. At the very least, these people should be getting a visit or a letter or something letting them know that, hey, you better watch, what you're doing, because you really shouldn't or cannot be doing this, instructing people on how to break the law. So we'll see. But ultimately, this is a political loser and a big one. Unbelievable. Well, of course, we have sleepy, creepy China Joe Biden, making a speech yesterday, and during that speech, he clearly laid out how he's going to, if he became the nominee, which he's not, in my opinion, going to become the nominee, but if he were to become the nominee, how he is going to lay down the battle lines in a matchup against Trump. And he's going to make it basically globalism versus nationalism. Globalism versus America first. What's amazing about this is that this shows you how clueless Biden and his party are. We don't talk about it very much in 2016 because there was so many things that were involved in why Hillary lost. But I think a big overriding issue that it's really covers many issues, but one big thing that not a lot of people talked about in the 2016 election, and the reason why I think Trump won is because Trump represented, Americanism, nationalism, populism. Hillary was the poster child for globalist and globalism, and which has been a tremendous failure, not just here, but all over Europe as well, and other places. So I think that the globalism versus nationalism argument, man, oh man, I would want to be on the side of globalism. It's in a downward trend. But again, Biden's obviously asleep at the switch. If he thinks that running on globalism instead of Americanism or populism or nationalism is a winner, man, oh man, he's in for a rude awakening. I really believe, again, that I think that this was a much bigger issue in 2016 than a lot of people believe. And, I don't know. Let him continue to go out and run on this. But, he says in this quote, he actually said this in a quote yesterday in his speech. He said, quote, "I respect no borders and cannot be contained by any walls." I respect no borders and cannot be contained by any walls. Man, oh man, you want to talk about a commercial. Man, oh man. All you need is a picture of creepy, sleepy China Joe, his face, with that caption right below it. I respect no borders and cannot be contained by any walls. Yep, that's a winner. That's a winner. If you're in the GOP and you have anything to do with ads and ad placement for 2020, right there you go. Right there you go. And of course, we're getting a lot of rumors now about people who may be in Epstein's black book, and certainly that'll eventually come out, I assume. But in the meantime, you don't need a black book or any secret information to know who Epstein has donated to in terms of politicians. He's donated lots of money to politicians over the years. And when you look at the list of people he has donated to, he's donated to a lot of Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't seem to matter. There's as many Republicans on the list as there are Democrats. And most of them are Republicans or Democrats that are in New York or California or powerful politicians who are have powerful positions, leadership positions in D.C. And I saw the list, about 25, 30 names. It's a mix of Republicans and Democrats. And you have people, of course, obviously, like Chuck the Cuck Schumer, Joe Lieberman, George W. Bush, John Kasich, Alphonse D'Amato and Dick Gephardt, and it's just they're all people who were in leadership positions, be they Republican or Democrat, over these past many years. But one thing that we know for sure, and we don't need a black book to look at this either, is how much money Epstein donated to the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, and the Clinton campaigns. Both the Clintons' campaigns. So the big question is, will all these people, especially the Clintons, are they going to give the money back? Are they going to give back all that money given to them by Epstein? We will see, because that's usually what they do. Whenever someone usually comes out like this, and it's found out that you got money from them, generally you're forced, political pressure forces you to give back the money. Or donate a similar amount of money to charity or something. Think how much money that Epstein has given to the Clintons. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. Do you think the Rotten Reverend and Slick Willie will be writing a check to some charities? Yeah, probably to the Clinton Foundation. Knowing the Clintons? Oh, no, they're not above that whatsoever. Oh, I have no... I'm telling you right now, wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Rotten Reverend or Slick Willie send out a tweet or make a speech or say something. I don't think Slick Willie doesn't tweet. The Reverend does. But he makes speeches. He gives talks and things. And I wouldn't be least bit surprised to see one or both of them come out and say, yeah, well, we've decided to take the money that Epstein donated to us over the years, and we're going to write a check for that amount to a charity. And then we'll find out later it was the Clinton Foundation. Yes. Okay, so let's get into this Paul Sperry article that was in the Washington Post. Nothing particularly new of information here. Just it's kind of Paul Sperry and his thoughts on William Barr's investigation, what he understands that Barr is looking into, and Mr. Durham, what they're looking into, and his ideas on some things that they definitely should be looking into. And what makes me so happy about this article is that for probably close to a year since the fall of, I guess, 2017 or later, yeah, I think it was like 2017, the fall of 2017, I discovered this task force, this multi-agency task force, secret task force, six-agency task force. It goes by many names, but I discovered this late in the fall, I believe, of 2017. And for well over a year, I kept saying, people, they need to look at this multi-agency task force, because this is how everything was coordinated together. And we know that the timing on it came about in March late March, early April of 2016. And it explains a lot of the issues that people have trying to figure out how all this was coordinated together and how the FBI got this information. It came from the intelligence community. How did it go from the track of CIA or intelligence into FBI? And if you understand the multi-agency or six-agency task force, then you will understand how all these various departments of government were coordinated together. It was through this task force set up by Mr. Potato Head. So in this article by Paul Sperry, he says the FBI and CIA are hiding evidence that shows that they themselves meddled in the 2016 election to help Clinton win. That's a brilliant point, obviously. It's very, very obvious, but when you see it written down and you think about it, I mean, it's crazy in a way, because, you know, here they are putting on a hoax that Trump and the Russians and Putin are working together to meddle in the 2016 elections, when in fact it was they who were actually meddling in the 2016 elections using this phony Trump-Russia collusion delusion hoax. So it's crazy when you think about it in those terms. So he also says that while ensuring that they had checks in place against a renegade Trump presidency. So his whole quote in this paragraph is, the FBI and the CIA are hiding evidence that shows that they themselves meddled in the 2016 election to help Clinton win, while ensuring that they had checks in place, that would be the insurance policy, against a renegade Trump presidency by using FISAs to hack into Trump's aides' emails and by running a network of spies against them. Very well said. Very well done by Paul Sperry. Now, he goes into some, I guess we'll say, bullet point type things where he says that Barr is probing the following things. And the very first thing he says is what CIA chief, Barr is probing what CIA chief John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, was up to in arranging a secret interagency task force that held meetings on alleged collusion during the spring, summer, and fall of 2016. Also, the classified memos that Mr. Potato Head sent to Comey, Lynch, and Rice about the information that was being discussed in these task force, the secret task force meetings. And apparently, this information has come from interviews with, as Sperry points out, about 53 witnesses who were interviewed by the House Intelligence Committee, which has all been classified, and we've never seen any of this stuff. But apparently Paul Sperry knows about it, and he knows that somewhere, some of those, or one of those, or however many of those 53 witnesses revealed to the House Intelligence Committee that John Brennan was giving secret briefings or memos, secret memos to Comey, Lynch, and Rice about the things that they were discussing and likely doing within this secret task force. And this is key, and this makes me really happy because I've been saying for a very long time, if you want to get to the origins and you want to understand how this entire thing, how all these various agencies were coordinated together, because look at all the various agencies that are involved here. You have intelligence from both the CIA and the DOJ and the FBI. You have the regular FBI. You have the State Department involved. You have the DOD involved. You have the Treasury involved. You have foreign intelligence involved. You have private intelligence firms involved. You have all these things, and it's very difficult to believe that they would all just be happening individually on their own tracks without there being some coordination from someone, some central figure coordinating all of these things together. Because it's clear that these things are being coordinated. That's obvious. And that's obvious to Nunes, it's obvious to members of Congress, and of course it's fairly obvious to Barr, I'm sure, and his attorney or prosecutor Durham. And so if you want to try to figure out, man, how in the origins of all this, how was all this put together so it was so coordinated? And when you discover the secret task force set up by Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, then it becomes quite clear to you, because when you look at the people, some of the people we know that were a part of this task force would include Peter Strokinus, Andrew McCabe, and of course Brennan, Clapper. They were all part of this. And you can expect that there were people from each of these agencies, and that's how they were coordinating it. And the only person left out of that group of the task force was the State Department. They were left out. Why would that be? They would be a hugely important member to have in that group, but they were left out. And the reason they were left out is because they needed to be left out of the loop, because they were going to be the pipeline that the other ones were going to use to funnel the information or pipeline the information through to get into the FBI. The CIA essentially, and intelligence and these other agencies, using the State Department to funnel and pipeline the garbage into the FBI, where FBI, being the domestic investigative agency, could get the FISA warrants, could get national security letters, could get other types of search warrants, and could conduct the investigation. So it all becomes clear to you when you discover that. So I'm so happy to know that Barr and Durham have discovered the task force, the multi-agency, whatever you want to call it, six-agency. Sperry refers to it as the Secret Interagency Task Force. That's fine. You can call it whatever you want. Paul Wood, who first broke the story, a British reporter first broke the story, he described it as a multi-agency task force. Then we had Jeff Carlson described it as the 6-agency task force. But you can call it whatever you want. It's all the same thing. And then, of course, from that, in the late summer of 2016, as all this information was being flowed to Obama personally, he set up this fusion cell, which was like a condensed version of all this, and Joe Biden and others were brought into the inner circle of that. So that was the origin of the fusion cell that was set up. The origin of that, where it began, was with the John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head's task force. So very, very good news. And if Barr and Durham have discovered the secret task force and they're digging in there, that tells me they're serious about it. And what they find there will explain how this all was coordinated, and that will prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was a conspiracy. It wasn't a bunch of individuals acting on their own. This was a conspiratorial plot, and Mr. Potato Head was running the show at the beginning, and later Obama, with the rotten Reverend Clinton in the background as the puppet master, the marionette. Oh my. Sperry says that Barr also wants to know how and why Mr. Potato Head came to apprise Obama of highly classified information produced by a source close to Putin, who, according to a congressional investigator, was a recycled source used by Chrissy Steele in the discredited dossier. Now, again, most of you know I don't believe there were any Russian sources. I believe that was Steele's imagination. His imagination. Other than Americans who are or American citizens, or people who are, when I say Russians, when they talk about Russians, I mean, I don't believe there were Russians who were a part of Putin's government or connected to Putin who had anything to do with any of this. The Russians we'd be talking about are people like Oleg Deripaska, Sergei Milian, and all these people. And they're not really, Putin people. They're not in his government. They're not in his intelligence. They're not in his defense agencies. They're not in his inner circle. They're not people who would have access to highly classified information. And, of course, blackmail material on a president would be highly classified information that people like Milian and Deripaska would never see. So we'll find out at some point who this so-called secret source is, because we've heard about this before. So we'll keep waiting to find out about what's going on with that. Sperry also says that Barr should look at, now he's making recommendations, he says that Barr should look at records from FBI and CIA on Joseph Mifsud. Well, we got more coming up on him before the end of the video. He also says that Barr should look into the 99-page FISA court ruling pointing out the violations. We're talking about the 99-page FISA court document by Judge Collier, which we've been talking about now again for a very long time. Sidney Powell talks about it. Other people talk about it. It still has never really made the mainstream at this point, and I'm not sure why. But eventually that will turn out to be an important piece of documentary evidence when we get into the FISA and the unmaskings specifically. And of course, as he says here, that would also involve releasing the names of the Obama officials and the private contractors who were doing the 702 queries, as well as the Obama administration officials who were unmasking American citizens. Also, there's one other note that I want to make here before I move on to the next thing, is that Carter Page is saying that he has advised Paul Sperry that Inspector General Horowitz has never asked to interview him. And he said he has volunteered to Horowitz to testify. So Carter Page telling Paul Sperry He's never been interviewed by Horowitz, even though he's volunteered. So there you go, Paul Sperry. I certainly hope Barr and Durham are paying attention. We also had some interesting Papagalopoulos tweets. You have Papagalopoulos saying in a tweet yesterday that Downer, Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, is Clinton's errand boy. Clinton's errand boy. That feeds into my narrative when I suggested that it was the Clintons who probably brought Downer in, brought him in out of the bullpen. Halper was supposed to get the stuff off of off of Papagalopoulos. Misfit planted the dope, and Halper was supposed to get it from him. But Papagalopoulos clammed up, and that probably sent them into a tizzy. Because remember, the Rotten Reverend is getting constant updates on the plot, and someone probably called and said, "Uh-oh, Halper screwed up, man. Pops didn't drop the information. Uh-oh, what are we going to do now? This throws a real wrench in the plot." And I'm suspecting that the Clintons probably said, "Uh-oh, who can we call? Who can help us out? Who can get us out of this jam?" And I'm thinking they picked up the phone and called Downer. Said, "Hey, Alex, we need you to do us a favor, buddy." That's what I think happened. And it looks like Papagalopoulos is insinuating the same. According to him, Downer is Clinton's errand boy. He also lists the people who spied on him. Tobias Elwood, Stefan Halper, the Fat Man, Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, the British Embassy in the District of Criminals, GCHQ, Erica Thompson. He doesn't mention Mifsud. Let's see, we have Jennifer Palmieri, who is the, of course, communications director for the Rotten Reverend Clinton. And she says in a statement today was all over the internet. I'm sure many of you have seen this, but if you haven't, get a load of this. Jennifer Palmieri is saying that she would ankle dive the Rotten Reverend Clinton at the door to stop her from the misery she would encounter with another presidential run. In other words, Palmieri would try to stop the Rotten Reverend from running again in 2020. Why is she talking about that? Because she knows. Oh, yeah, she knows. And I think what she's talking about here is that she knows that the Rotten Reverend would probably lose even worse. It will be even worse for her. I mean, she looks worse. She's in no better health than she was back then. They're going to roll out the Scooby van again, coughing, up green shit, passing out. We're going to get all that again? Dr. Feelgood? Standing there with his EpiPen? I mean, come on, man. Yes, but she's watching creepy China Joe. She knows that he's just about, he's weak. He's getting weaker every day. 1 or 2 more debates, and he'll be in the low, maybe 10, 12, 13%. And that's when the door will be wide open for the Rotten Reverend. And so here's Jennifer Palmieri saying she'll do anything she can to stop it. So I wonder if this is just part of the beginning of the Draft Hillary campaign, which is already ongoing if you look at the hashtags. Now we have some new information on Mifsud. Now, Mifsud. Now this is coming from BuzzFeed, who received an email, was obviously an email contact with Stephen Rowe. And we're being told by BuzzFeed that this past Monday, just about 3 or 4 days ago, that Stephen Rowe said in an email that Mifsud is preparing to testify to the U.S. Senate. Rowe says he is working towards Mifsud's appearance. He says that Mifsud does admit to meeting with Papagalopoulos on 3 or 4 occasions, but he says Mifsud is saying he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. That's a bit of a change from what we've heard before. Doing nothing wrong and not telling Papagalopoulos what he allegedly told him is 2 different things. I find it hard to believe that Mifsud is going to sit there and say he didn't tell Pops what he told him. I find that hard to believe. And if he does, it really upsets the apple cart. It really, really creates a big problem. Because if he didn't tell Papagalopoulos, who did? Or did anyone say anything at all? Well, so My first thoughts on this are that, first of all, if it's a U.S. Senate, they're probably talking about the Intelligence Committee. Now, if you're talking about the Senate Intelligence Committee, that's the most deep state gatekeeper committee in the entire Congress, the most corrupt in the entire Congress. If he goes to the U.S. Senate Intel Committee, who knows? I mean, the only thing they'll do is have a closed-door session, and they'll do nothing more than try to use him to cover up, to continue the cover-up and the coup. They're not going to get any truth out of there. But I'll be honest with you. And I don't know if Barr or if Durham heard about this, because this was not only just a BuzzFeed story. I got this originally off the AP Newswire. I scan the AP Newswire every day, and I got it off the AP Newswire. And it was only after I got it off the AP Newswire and I looked at the photo at the top of the story, and just below the photo on the left-hand side, it shows it's sourced by BuzzFeed. And then, of course, it says in the article that BuzzFeed is saying that they received an email from Stephen Rowe this past Monday saying he's right now working in the process of getting Mifsud over here. Now, I can tell you that if Barr or Durham got wind that Mifsud was going to be stepping on U.S. soil, I'm pretty sure that they would have the FBI there waiting for him. As soon as he got off the plane, they would grab him. He's not gonna come to D.C. and testify to the Senate Intelligence Committee and then waltz right back out the door, hop on a plane, and fly back to his hideout. That is not going to happen. If he steps foot on U.S. soil, then he's absolutely going to be picked up by Durham or Barr or somebody. He's not going to come to the country and talk to the Intelligence Committee and leave. I don't think so. He's probably one of the top people that Durham and Barr know they have to talk to. And if he comes to the U.S., he will absolutely be picked up. So let's see if that happens. I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, we heard the same thing a long time ago, many months ago. Rowe was saying that he was trying to work a deal to get Mifsud over here to testify, and he was willing to do so. And that was many months ago. It still hasn't happened. Now, maybe it's going to happen. I don't know. But I would think, as I said before, that you really can't do this investigation until you talk to Mifsud. He's a key player, principal player, top 3 principal players in the scam. Now, just want to touch briefly, for the time I have left, on this thing that Nunes was talking about on his last Fox appearance, where he's talking about the fact that the FBI still, to this day, their position is that they never saw the Steele information, the dossier information, until September. But the Operation Crossfire Hurricane began on July the 31st, 2016. Now, the problem with that is that we know for an absolute... There's a lot of problems with that, actually, but one big problem with that is that we know that Christopher Steele was briefing FBI agent Michael Gaeta in Rome back in July. We also know that there was a second meeting that followed that, where agents from the U.S. were sent over for a second meeting. I'm not exactly sure of that date. Now, that may have been in September, but the first meeting occurred back in July, and it's hard to believe that the FBI didn't know about that. But looking at this Operation Crossfire Hurricane, they say that Operation Crossfire Hurricane was started because of the Papadopoulos-Downer conversation. Papadopoulos and Downer started Crossfire Hurricane. But if you look at Crossfire Hurricane is a phrase from a Rolling Stones song, right? Jumping Jack Flash. And what is Jumping Jack Flash? Well, Jumping Jack Flash was a comedy movie that starred Whoopi Goldberg. It was a box office fail. It was a horrible movie, a bad movie. But basically, it was a movie where it was a comedy sort of movie where Whoopi Goldberg's a computer programmer. She gets a message on her computer screen. It ends up being this British spy who's gotten himself into some trouble. He's trying to get out of Eastern Europe, and she runs into all sorts of calamity. She runs into the FBI, the CIA, the KGB, and trying to help this British spy, get himself free. So Crossfire Hurricane relates to this movie about a British spy, yet they want us to believe that Operation Crossfire Hurricane had nothing to do with that it was Papadopoulos-Downer. So there's a lot of things to be dug up here. We know the FBI is lying. It's just a matter of time before we get the proof. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.